Hello and welcome to the Self-Recording Band podcast. I am your host, Benedikt. If you are new to the show, welcome. So glad to have you. If you're already a listener, thank you for coming back. We always appreciate you, and thank you for hanging out with us again today. Just know that if you're discovering this on YouTube, there is also like an audio-only podcast available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you enjoy podcasts, and vice versa. If you're discovering this on a podcast app, you can also watch the video version on YouTube. I just say this because some people are not aware of that, so whatever you prefer. Today is a special episode. Today is not the usual Malcolm and I thing. Today I'm with someone else here, and that someone is one of my Self-Recording Syndicate members, Dewi Thompson. Dewi is a self-recording musician based in England who writes and records rock and pop rock music as a solo artist, as well as for his bands Brave New World and Altered States. And since we first met in 2021, I think 2021 it was, he's leveled up his audio skills as well as his overall knowledge and understanding of the whole record-making process significantly. And he has finished many mixes this year that were absolutely impressive sounding. Like, the progress was mind-blowing. And so it's about time to introduce him to you and tell his story so that you can discover his music and learn about his journey from like creating demos at home to like sending me mixes that sound absolutely phenomenal. So hello, Dewi. It's so cool to have you. Thank you for taking the time.
Hi, Benedikt.
How are you?
Thank you. Thanks for asking me. Great, thank you.
Awesome.
Great.
Now, is there anything missing in my introduction there? Do we have to add anything?
No, I think that sums it up pretty much, really. I mean, I guess we'll get onto the story a little bit more as we talk a bit more.
Yeah, we will. So before we met and you decided to sign up for the Self-Recording Syndicate, which is our coaching program, give me a rundown, please, of what things looked like for you as a producer, mixer, or self-recording artist back then in 2021 and before that.
Okay. I suppose I'd been writing and recording my own songs for 10, 15 years or something like that, but obviously very, very informally and not really for anything other than just friends, you know, that kind of thing. I was always using fairly basic equipment in terms of old laptops. I decided to invest in a new laptop, new version of Cubase, some new software to kind of just try and do it properly, you know. So that was great. Really money well spent, and I absolutely loved getting to grips with Cubase and the power it has. And I suppose at that point I thought, okay, I've got to try and start understanding how to use this properly. And
for how long have you been doing it before that? Like, what was with the old version? Like, for how long have you been recording stuff?
Well, I mean, actually it goes back a long way, probably to the early 90s, like the very early versions of Cubase. But that was really just kind of jams, really. That wasn't songs so much. It was just recording me jamming with myself, really. So
I didn't even know that about you. Did you ever have, what was the thing before Cubase, like the Atari and notator programs and stuff like that? Did you have something like that?
I had the Atari ST, and outboard gear, you know, like an Alesis Quadriverb GT, if anyone remembers that, like an old guitar.
Yes.
And Alesis SR16 drum machine, if anyone remembers that.
Wow, the Quadriverb is actually an underrated piece of gear that still sounds awesome. I know a few people who still use it today because of its unique sound. So
yeah. So I had a few bits and pieces, but it was all just. I wasn't even writing songs at that point. It was just, like I said, it was just noodling. If I'm being brutally honest. Then I started writing songs, but still on fairly basic equipment, like I said. I mean, it worked fine. You know, light versions of Cubase are fine, but. I finally invested in some, you know, this laptop and Cubase, the latest version. But I realized my skills and production and mixing technique was nowhere near good enough to match, you know, what I had in terms of my equipment. So I did what everybody does now, which is I watched about 1,000 videos on YouTube.
What did you do before YouTube, though? Like in the 90s and stuff? How did you learn back then? Because it was harder to get all this information, right? Way harder.
Well, I guess I didn't. I don't think I did. I don't think I did try to learn. I think it was one of. I guess it was one of those things where, yeah. Well, I guess it's like the old story, isn't it? If you don't know what you don't know, you don't know you don't know it. If you know what I mean. I just had either an 8-track or I forgot to mention that I had an 8-track Tascam cassette recorder. Again, you know, I don't even I mean, don't even know if people remember such a thing. But I didn't know what there was to learn, so I guess I didn't try, and I'll probably, if I'm honest, I wasn't really taking it very seriously either. It was just noodling, really.
So then at some point you decided to take it more seriously, like not just the gear, but like not just the gear upgrade, but also you like watched it, as you said, 1,000 YouTube videos, and you just decided you want to get better at this, and so you gathered all the information you could find basically and tried to figure it out that way.
It was impossible, for reasons I'm sure you can understand. If you watch 20 videos on compression, you're more confused by the end of it than you were at the beginning. So I actually got to the point where I was getting lost in it, really. I was trying to learn, but getting completely lost.
What made you take the plunge to join the program then? Because that is a whole other like commitment and investment and everything, like from just basically doing nothing to watching YouTube stuff to like really investing in yourself and your skills and joining a program like that.
Well, I suppose I'm trying to remember actually how I found out about you. It might have been the podcast, I think.
Probably. And then we had an email conversation. I remember going back and forth. At some point, you answered one of my emails, I think, or you replied, and then we had a conversation, and then I offered you the call, and then that's how it worked, I think. And, but the first, I don't know what the first touch point was. What was it? The podcast? Probably,
I think
right?
probably. It's difficult to remember. Yeah. I imagine that's where it was. Yeah, I was in that phase of trying to find out everything, and actually, finding out nothing really in the end because there was too much. And it was when you offered program, I had to think about it quite a bit because ultimately this is still just a hobby for me. And I'd already spent quite a lot of money on the laptop and all the software and everything. And so I thought, can I justify spending some money on a program which is going to help me, but really it's still just my hobby. Can I justify that? And so I thought about it, long and hard. And obviously I decided to do it because I felt that I needed some guidance, basically.
Didn't you even reach out to like some of the existing students at that point? Was that like that? I remember you. I think you posted in the Facebook community or so, and then you did the same for other people later. I think, which is really cool because the community is very supportive and helpful there. And so I remember you, asking a few people of how it went for them. I think,
yeah. I think the main reason for me was the felt that the YouTube, what you're trying to learn through YouTube is all very well, but there's no path through it. There's no guidance. There's a lot of knowledge, but there's no guidance. And I was just getting completely lost. And I felt I needed someone or something that would take me through in a much more structured way, which is obviously what the program does.
Thank you. Yeah, YouTube is great. I mean, everything's out there, obviously, but it's uncurated, and there's conflicting information, and there's no feedback, and so it's all up to you to figure that out. And I learned that way, and it took so long, like years and years and years, until I got somewhere. And it was only when I started collaborating with others and getting feedback and mentoring from successful producers that things really started to click. And it seems like the same thing happened for you, where it doesn't really matter that all the information is out there if you're not sure whether or not it applies or it makes sense for your music. And
and I think what's a big thing for me was I suppose I went from the YouTube videos on you name it, the obvious stuff, compression, reverb, EQ, the obvious stuff. I was watching videos on that, and so my thought was, if I do the program or something like it, I'm going to get, by the end of it, I will understand these techniques a lot better. So my thoughts at the beginning was, by the end of it, I will be able to use EQ, compression, etc., with far more knowledge of what I'm doing, which is true. But actually, the program, I learned on the program way more. It kind of changed my whole process and my understanding of what I'm doing, rather than just how to use EQ. It was much, much bigger and much more important than just learning how to use compression, which, like I said, I dare say we'll talk about a bit more.
Awesome. But man, I really appreciate you saying that. And it's so cool that you see it that way, because it's really not about the individual techniques. They are part of it, but it's about the big picture and understanding the whole process and thinking about the music. And what I love about your work, your music, and the way you approach things was that it was always very much focused on the music, on the arrangements, on the songs themselves. You're a great songwriter. You have a great feel for things. You have a great intuition. It's just that you were lacking the techniques a little bit, or you didn't know how to make what you have in your head come out of the speakers, but you had a good vision. You were very focused on the songs. And so it's learning those things that you mentioned, but it's most importantly how they serve your songs and how you can come up with a process that is creative and efficient and still fun, because it's also work. So there's got to be a balance there between it being like work and a learning thing, but also fun. And you managed that really, really well. You're one of the people who did almost everything we had in the program at the time. I mean, there's always new action plans and things coming now, but you went through almost all of it, or basically all of it. I think you were very, very active, and like you did all the assignments, you asked for feedback, and it was really, really cool to see, because not everybody puts in that amount of effort, so.
Yeah, I guess it was part of the way I am about things. Like it is still a hobby for me, but kind of want it to be as good as I could be, given where I am with it. You know what I mean? So the fact that I joined the program, it was kind of then, okay, I'm really going for it. I really wanted. I dived straight in, kind of thing.
Yeah, totally. Now, what do things look like now? Roughly like 1.5 years later, or so, almost 2 years at this point. How do you feel about your skill level and the quality of your recordings and mixes? Any wins worth talking about?
It's completely transformed the way it's completely transformed the way I do everything. And I would say that I find it almost inconceivable, the difference between what I was doing before. I mean, it wasn't terrible before. I don't think it was terrible.
No, it wasn't.
But it wasn't,
no,
when you listen to, because I've gone back and remixed all those old songs, and the difference is, incredible. So I think we talked about it at the beginning, what I wanted from it and the coaching. And I said, I wanted to get to a point where what I was doing was never going to be professional sounding, because I'm never going to be a professional. I don't have professional gear or experience or knowledge, so that was unrealistic. But I wanted it to sound semi-professional, like it wasn't as amateurish as it sounded before. And absolutely, I think that's absolutely what's happened. And I'm very, very happy with the way things sound now.
You're very British, polite, careful in the way you put your goal there, because we always write down the goal that everyone has in the beginning of the program. And I'm going to read what you put there. You said, currently I don't, like that was at the beginning of the program, the goal that you said, currently I don't think my productions sound professional. I don't expect to get to the point where they sound fully professional, but I would like to produce something that can be compared to professional recordings, which I love, because it's a very careful way of saying, I actually want it to sound professional, but I want to be realistic as well. And I think you really got there. And I mean, professional, the definition is someone doing that as a job, like, making a living off of it. That's their profession. And of course, if that is the case, and you can put all your time and effort, energy and all that just into that one thing, that's still different from someone doing it as a hobby. But for someone who's doing it as a hobby, you got pretty darn close. So I think really listening to your stuff is absolutely fascinating and mind-blowing. And I agree about the difference between before and after. The cool thing is it wasn't terrible, as you said, because talent and a good ear obviously helps, and certain balances and certain things and the arrangement, that all was there. But whatever was lacking, I think you really filled those knowledge gaps during the program. And also the confidence significantly changed. I remember in the beginning you were not so sure about a few things, and and during the program it especially towards the end of it, where we did a lot of remixing and a lot of mixing feedback going back and forth. We did a lot of that actually, which was really helpful, I think. And during that phase, I noticed that you got more confident as well, and you seemed to be enjoying your work and working on those songs and the results much more than in the beginning. A lot of the insecurity kind of went away, which is a big thing, and because that makes you then a better mixer also, or a better producer. How do you feel about the whole confidence thing? Not just how it actually sounds, but how you feel about, working on a song.
It's an interesting question. Actually, I'm not sure. I'm not sure I work on a song that much differently, because that part of it is probably about. It depends what you mean. The writing of the song is about the same. The arrangement of the song, I've always spent.
I mean, the mixing, the engineering phase, that part, or working on your projects in general.
Yeah. I mean, completely different. I mean, I didn't know what I was doing. Honestly, I probably just didn't know what I was doing before. I thought I did. I'd never heard the phrase gain staging.
Yeah.
Now, I know it's a common phrase, but I guess that tells you where I was with what I was doing. I'd never heard that phrase. And so now, obviously, I know what it means, and I absolutely do that part of it.
Yeah.
So doing it now has changed my process, like from the moment I start recording something to the very last bit. So it's not just the knowledge of how to tweak the compression. It's my workflow is transformed in a way that it's just makes so much difference. Like the use of buses, which group channels and buses, which I didn't do before, not really. And it's hard to explain exactly how much difference it's made, really, because it's made it so much more enjoyable for me. I've been so much more productive in the last 18 months than for 5 years, more than 5 years probably. I'm just constantly working on new songs all the time at the moment, which I wasn't before.
Yeah, totally. And I remember you saying at some point, and I think that was really interesting and a valuable lesson also for others who listen to this. I think you said something like, it's not only good to learn new things, but it's good to know what actually goes into this, like what there is to learn and what, like, to learn what you actually don't know, like knowing what you don't know and what there is and how much goes into that. This is valuable in and of itself, because even if you can't do it yet, you know at least where the gaps are and you understand the whole process better. And then even after a program like that, you can make progress on your own much better because you understand what is still missing, right? I think that was a profound thing you said at some point.
Yeah,
really
I mean,
cool.
as you said, I have a better understanding now of what I don't know. There's still huge amounts I don't know, but at least I'm aware of what that is now, a bit better.
Is there anything in particular what you did during that time now that made the biggest difference? Can you point out one thing?
It's hard to say because, like I said, there's so much. But I suppose, like I said already, I think the understanding of workflow is huge. You know, gain staging, watching the input levels more, group channels, buses, that whole just the way the tracks are arranged, all that's huge. You know. That's the first thing, and I think the other thing which you mentioned a minute ago was the thing that I suppose took me to the next level in terms of what I'd learned is when I'd finished the learning part of the coaching to a certain extent, maybe after 6 months or something, the videos, pressure and reverb, etc., etc. Watched the videos, and then went back and remixed. Yeah, I don't know how many songs I remixed. It must have been about 12 old songs, plus I was working on a few. So I remixed I did a lot of mixing, basically. That's it in short. And I think that's what made the difference. I suppose I didn't probably appreciate that actually doing all that mixing and remixing. I learned so much from it. I guess there's no substitute for that, really, just the actual practice of it. Yeah,
totally. And what I like about it is you always went deep on one thing. Like, you went through these phases of, focusing fully on mixing for a period of time, which actually really moved the needle and helped you make a lot of progress. But then also there was phases where you were like, I think I should focus more on writing now again, or on arrangement, or, and then you went deeper on that and you studied other writers. I know we had a conversation about Taylor Swift, for example, of all like artists, but like, and other great songwriters out there. And then you went into this phase of like focusing on that more, which I think is really cool because a lot of people are jumping back and forth between so many different things all the time. But you went really deep on mixing for a while, then focused on songwriting again. And you had a good feel for, when it was like, okay, I've learned enough of this right now. I think I need to make progress in a different area now. And now I'm going to shift my focus. And you have a really good feel for that. And I think that also helped. It's like it was a really intense time where we focused on those mixes. But then you also knew when it was time to do something else. And the same was true in the beginning when you were joining a lot of the calls and you were watching all the videos and you consumed all of the information and you focused really on that. And then you felt like now it's time to implement it. And so that was a really smart way of going about it, I think.
Thank you. I'm not sure it was deliberate, but I guess that's what happened.
Yeah, totally.
I think something that happened during the coaching, which it may be coincidence, I don't know, but I was listening to a lot of, I always listen to a lot of music, but I was listening to a lot of music in particular, I guess. And with something we talked about, I think, was the fact that I got to a point where I realized that I was improving myself technically, in terms of arrangement and production and mixing. I was getting better at it, which is great. Everything was sounding better. But then I realized, listening to my own songs, I realized that maybe some of them were technically quite clever or interesting, but I don't know whether they connect with people enough, and that's really, I realized, I guess, that actually connecting with people and them listening to it and thinking, oh, I like this, that's far more important to me now than whether they're impressed by my middle 8 chord sequence. It's all about connection, and that's something I'm really trying to work on now.
Yeah. This is so great. I love this, and I love that you say this is so valuable for people to hear this, because it's cool to be like, I can make this as fancy or advanced as possible, or some people make like music for other musicians basically, which is fine, but I see, like you said, it's all about connection. It's sometimes 3 simple chords and the great melody on top of it is all you need, and it creates an emotion, and So I love that. I love that realization. Yeah. So how did you implement that into your music then? Like, did you have some? Did you write some newer songs where you feel like you've accomplished that and you focus more on like how it connects and less on making it complex?
Yes, certainly focusing on it. Yeah. Whether I'm achieving that, I don't know, because I think it's quite hard. Yeah. Because
nobody knows what people
exactly.
Like, so.
And I think I probably haven't focused on it enough. I probably haven't focused enough on the melodies in my songs enough. I focused on the chord structures and the actual structure of the song, which is important, obviously. But I probably haven't focused on the melody enough, and I've realised that now. And I guess for me, that's because I suppose the listener hears the melody, they latch onto the melody probably as much, more than anything. And so if the melody isn't strong or strong enough, it's probably not going to connect in the same way. So I'm trying to work on that. It's not something that's probably I'm particularly natural at, so I have to work at it. But I guess there you go. That's something to do anyway.
Yeah, and also just so people know, you do everything yourself. You have a writing partner, and we'll get to that because I'm going to ask you about your projects. Obviously, you have a writing partner that you make music with, but for the most part, or a lot of these songs that I've heard, you've done almost all of it yourself, right? You play guitar, you program drums, you sing, you do all program bass, all of that. You write and arrange, and I think that makes it even harder to really focus, let's say, just on the melody or something. If it's all you doing everything, makes it probably at least not easier. And so, so it's understandable that the whole arrangement and everything you can do and you can put into it, that this is important to you, and that you can sometimes get distracted by other things when you want to actually focus on the melody, for example.
Well, maybe it's one of the pitfalls of doing everything yourself, because like you said, I write the songs and then I play everything and then I mix it, obviously. So the whole process can take a while, which gives me a lot of creative control, which I love. But
that's big too.
I wonder whether sometimes there's a tendency to rush bits of it, because you're kind of doing all of it, and if it's kind of, I need to get onto the next bit, and then otherwise you'll take forever over it. And so maybe there are some stages that I rush because I'm just trying to get it finished, which is again something I probably have to work on a bit.
I mean, there's always something, but I'd rather have you like. I think that it's better to finish songs frequently, put out songs, release songs, which I think will happen for you soon as well, or at some point at least. But like, I think it's great to have consistent output and create a lot, and therefore like keep the feedback loop short, learn from those things, and I think that's better than trying to make it perfect, never really finishing anything. And there's people who work on a song for a long time because they don't want to rush it, but usually those people make progress slower, because what I think helps you get better is a short feedback loop, is failing, learning, doing it better next time, and repeating that as often as possible. And so I think it's actually a good thing, even if it feels rushed at some point. I think it's a good thing that you finished a lot of music during these last 2 years or so. Yeah.
Like the mixing, I guess there's no substitute for actually doing it. You can study bits of it and work on bits of it, but actually doing it, you learn. I think that's when you probably learn the most.
100%, yes. What are some current projects you're working on right now, and what are your plans for the next few months or years? So in terms of new stuff that you're working on, but also what happens with all the things you finished, like when will they be out, in which form? Like, tell me about those projects and what's on your plan right now.
It's quite complicated.
All right, I can't wait to hear.
My friend Chris, who I work with, he writes songs. He's been writing songs for, he's got hundreds of songs. He had a band, Brave New World, the band, and I joined that band as guitar player, songwriter, and everything. And then COVID happened, and so effectively the band kind of ceased to exist, really, in the sense that we never met, really. I don't think we ever met again as the whole band. So it's become me and Chris, and some of his songs are quite folky, and that's the way that the band has been for quite some time. And so anything that we've got which kind of fits into that category of kind of slightly weird psychedelic folk is going under that umbrella name of Brave New World, because that's got an existing kind of presence. But everything else we do is going to be under the name of Altered States, which is pretty much everything else we do. So we write separately pretty much, but we've got a few songs recently where, I've done the music, he's done the lyrics and vocals, and so we're writing together a bit. We're assembling enough songs for an album's worth, a CD, I guess probably will be a CD. I think we're getting very close, actually. So there's actually nothing out there under that name at the moment of Altered States. But there will be. That's the intention. They're not too distant future. It's only going to be, to call it a hobby, I guess it is still a hobby. It's not. We're not expecting anything drastic to happen. We're not expecting to make any money from it or anything. It's just, I want the songs to be heard, and that's the way to get it done, I guess.
All right, perfect. So just so we get it right, Brave New World and Altered States are two different projects, or has one evolved into the other, basically?
No, they're two. All the songs we record together are going to get put out under one of those two names, and if it's kind of slightly weird psychedelic folk thing, it's probably going to be called Brave New World, because that's already kind of known. That name's known a bit. It's the same people.
Yeah, that's why I'm asking. All right, it's the same people, two different projects. Yeah, makes sense. Two different audience probably as well, right? So if I remember correctly, some of the songs, or at least one of them, was like released on a sampler at some point. So there was actually a release already, right, of some sort.
Yeah, some of them have been released. One of them we actually got done as vinyl. A couple of them actually came out as vinyl. A few of them, 2 or 3 of them, have been put on like sample CDs or things like that for kind of independent labels. Like I said, it's just exposure, really, that more than anything. But they have been out there a bit, yeah.
Yeah, but that's great to hear. I mean, that's not something we should take for granted. I mean, a lot of people never release something in their life, and they would be very stoked to have their music featured on a compilation like that, or in any kind of format. So I think that's inspiring for people to hear. What was the feedback on those? Did you ever hear back from those labels or from anyone on those songs? Like, has there been like some feedback that you got?
The feedback we've had has been all positive, which is nice.
Awesome.
I think it's worth saying that I think it's unlikely much of that would have happened. Certainly, the album's worth of material, say. It's very. I think it's unlikely that would have happened without me doing this coaching, because, like I said already, I became far more productive through the coaching. I wrote a lot more songs. I recorded a lot more songs partly because I enjoy doing it so much more now. I love doing it. I can't stop, really. I'm always working on something. So I'm far more productive because I enjoy it more. But secondly, I have far more confidence in how they sound as well. I mean, like we've already discussed, they are maybe semi-professional sounding, and for me, that's good enough now. I'll take that. I now can confidently play that into someone and say, and then people have very positive things to say about the way they sound in terms of the production, So I now feel confident to release the songs as well. So this wouldn't have happened without the coaching either. So it's changed my motivation and determination to record, plus also determination to get people to hear them too. So like I said, it's kind of changed everything, really.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. I really appreciate that. Awesome. So, all right, is there a place where we can, like, yeah, probably not, but is there a place already where we can find those bands or like check out your music? Maybe those samplers, or like, will there be a website, or where can we point people to?
I think the short answer to is no, there isn't at the moment. If I'm honest, I guess we haven't spent a lot of time. I think a year ago we said, let's spend the next year writing and recording songs for a release of some form or other. And I think we're now getting to that point where we can seriously contemplate that. But we haven't thought about how to actually promote it or release it enough yet. So, but that's coming. That's the next stage. So there will be, but there isn't at the moment.
Okay. So if people want to check it out, they should just Google probably the bands Brave New World and Altered States. And then, yeah, there's probably, I mean, chances are there might be another artist called Brave New World with that name. Yeah. but
I'm pretty sure there is actually.
But like, yeah, they will, at some point, you know, whenever you release an official record or something, we will put it in the show notes of this episode after the fact so people can check it out if you listen to this later. And for now, just remember those names. They'll be in the show notes as well if you want to check that out. How would you describe, I mean, you kind of did it already, but like for who is this music for? Like let's do a quick for fans of kind of thing. Like who is going to enjoy your music?
Okay. Oh, that's a good question. The Brave New World side of things, like I said, is kind of slightly weird folk is the best way of putting it. So mostly acoustic and kind of a slightly weird, some of it's kind of slightly Wicker Man, kind of early 70s British folk kind of sounding. So that's Brave New World. It's very difficult to describe because you've heard the songs, you've heard the variety in them. You know, we've done a 15-minute space rock epic instrumental. We've done a 3-minute acoustic.
We've also done a Beatles style song.
Yeah, the Beatles, kind of the big 60s ELO production. There's a kind of we've just finished a song which is kind of pretty blatantly Britpop Blur sounding, you know. There's lots of kind of pop, as in guitar-based pop as well. So it's very, very, very eclectic, and it's going to be quite interesting to try and put that together, actually.
Awesome. And what about the other one, the Altered States?
Oh, that's what I was talking about there, actually.
Yeah, all right. The first. Okay. Yeah. It's kind of. Sorry, it kind of got confusing for me there. But
there is so many different. We've done so many different styles because that's just the songs we're writing and recording. It's going to be a challenge.
Those are your influences, right?
Yeah, and it's going to be a challenge to try and find a way of integrating them into one project, which it sounds like it's a whole rather than two different. But I guess that's a conversation down the line.
Yeah, and also that's highly subjective. I know people who love consistent sort of records where it's kind of in the same ballpark sort of thing, and then there's just as many people probably who like a lot of variation and don't mind an album of like completely different genres from the same artist. You know, it's like highly subjective too. So, and for me as well, like I could think of a couple of bands where I absolutely never want them to change. I basically want every record to be the same because that's what I expect from that band, you know? I would kind of be disappointed if they ever change. And then there's some bands where I really appreciate the fact that every album or every song is completely different. And so, I don't know, it depends, as always.
Yeah, I think we'll probably just record what we want to record and put that out and just kind of hope people like it. I think that's probably what we're going to do.
All right. Do you collaborate with others at the moment, other than your writing partners? There are other people who contribute to your music, or do you maybe offer any type of recording services to other bands or anything, guest musicians, whatever? Is there anybody else?
No, I've never really worked with anyone. I suppose I started out, like I said, with the Fostex 4-track and a really old drum machine and acoustic guitar, and I've never really done anything. I've never worked with anyone until now, you know. And even now we have. You know, I kind of write my songs, he writes his songs. So I've never been in a band as such. I've never actually played with other musicians. So it's quite, I guess it's a slightly unusual kind of pathway to here. I'd like to be in a band. it's just never quite happened. I'm not entirely sure why. So I've never really worked with other musicians, and I don't offer any services currently. I mean, it's an interesting thought, though.
Yeah,
I guess it's
because
possible.
I think you could bring something to the table, especially in terms of writing, arrangement. Also the engineering side of things. Now you're really good at this now too, but you got an overall really good understanding of the process, and as I said, you have a really good feel for the music and the arrangements. And I think you could be, the producer that some bands might be missing. Just the big picture, outside perspective, who listens to a song, and that is something I could see for you. I don't know if you're ever gonna be like the completely technical editor type of person. I think that's just not you. I think you're much more creative and sort of big picture, everything a little bit, that type of thing. And I think you could bring a lot to the table there if someone's too close to their music and maybe needs an outside perspective or something. I think that's something you could actually consider. I don't know if you've got in your circle, if there's bands that you could do that with as a start, but I think that would be valuable for people, honestly, because I would trust you that you would be able to do this. Yeah.
Funny enough, I've been thinking about that recently. Yeah, and I kind of agree with you. I think my strengths probably, I think technically I'm obviously a lot better now than I was, and but my strengths are probably the arrangement and production side. I think that is where I have a lot of ideas, and so that's probably my favourite part of it as well, actually. So yeah, I'd love to get involved with that. Maybe it's something I have to think about.
Cool. Yeah, totally. And also, if you're thinking about putting a band together to actually be able to perform that live and that kind of thing, who knows? A lot of people are listening to the show, so if you're interested, and it would be cool now, of course, for people to be able to hear the music. So once that's out, we will have to do that. But but when that happens and our community likes it, who knows? I think you wouldn't mind people reaching out, right? And asking for like collaborations or whatever. So.
I think that'd be fascinating. I think I said to you when I started the coaching, I kind of put the writing on hold a little bit because I already had a lot of songs to record, and so the last 12, 18 months have been very much about the learning and the coaching and the mixing, and it'd be nice to get back to the writing a bit more, and as you said, maybe even working with other people. That would be amazing. Very interesting.
Yeah, totally. And we've seen some amazing collaborations in our community. Just recently, something cool happened where people from completely different genres started creating songs together. And we have, for example, Paul Robb from the United States, and Wayne, our podcast editor, who also he's doing some more work actually for us at the Self-Recording Band now. He's amazing. But he also started as a coaching student, and the two of them, on one of the coaching calls, they decided to collaborate. And so Paul has been doing like the Bruce Springsteen style 80s rock sort of thing, and he wanted to do something new but didn't quite know how or like in which direction he wanted to take it. And then Wayne offered his help, and Wayne is like a indie pop kind of different genre, different approach. Everything's a little more dirty, a little more indie and vibey, and like different from the classic stadium rock thing that Paul did before. And so Wayne offered help, and now they're collaborating on a new song, and it's been going in a completely new direction, and Paul loves it. And I've seen like some collaborations like that. I've seen some collaborations where it's the same genre and everything works well together, but it's so cool to see that happen and to see that people are reaching out to each other and doing things like that. So I would love for someone to reach out to you as well, and maybe help get a band together, or whatever, like who knows what ends up happening. But this is a really cool aspect of it too. So
Yeah, it's time. I've left it late enough, as in, it's a strange time, and it's a strange thing to be thinking about like bands and at my age, and as much as I've never been in a band, and now I'm thinking, obviously we've got a project, but it's not really a band as such, so we're making and recording music and releasing it, but we're not playing, there are no plans to play it, and that would be quite nice.
Awesome. Yeah, totally. Because I just mentioned it, the community there, how did you experience that, like the group coaching calls, the community, maybe some of the other, like sort of the features or the benefits you experienced during the program? Can you list a couple of things that stood out to you, or how that was for you?
Yeah. I mean, it's a really supportive community, first of all. Actually, it's something... I don't embarrass you, but I think in terms of support, I want to say, that the most important supportive thing about the coaching was you. Obviously, as a coach, that was your clearly, it's kind of your role to be the coach and everything. That's obvious. But you've been so much positivity about what I've been doing, and I'm sure what everyone's doing. So it's one thing to feel like I can record something and send it to you, but it's another thing to someone to be offering so much positivity in what you're doing and positive feedback that actually it's just enjoyable. And that's probably one of the reasons, like I said, I kind of just do this all the time now, like record and mix, because I enjoy it so much now. It was the experience of doing the course, and I think with a different coach, I'm sure it'd be great, but anyone who's thinking of doing this, it's a very, very positive experience.
Wow, thank you so much. That would have been another question, actually, where I would ask, what would you tell someone who's on the fence of joining the program right now? So that's why I was asking about a few things that you might be able to point out in terms of the experience, the community, the features. But that what you just said about the positivity is something I didn't expect, but appreciate a lot. So, is there anything else you would want to tell people who are on the fence?
No, I think it needs to be said.
Thank you.
Well, I guess at risk of repeating myself slightly, I suppose, I think, like I said, one of the most important things for me, it doesn't just teach you how to technically be better at certain things. It transforms, well, it did with me anyway, because maybe my starting position was lower than some other people, but it transformed my understanding of the process, which is in reality, actually, I think more important than how well I understand compression, because I can go and find out more about compression now if I want to. But it was the learning the way things work, which was by far the most valuable thing. And so it's like learning another language instead of trying to. I guess what happened was I thought I would be doing the coaching to improve what I was doing, just kind of take where I was and get better at it a bit. Well, a lot, hopefully. But actually, I realized I was learning a whole new language, really. And that's what I would say to people. You will learn things probably in a way that you wouldn't expect to, and be far more confident in what you're doing at the end of it, I think.
Wow, thank you so much. I appreciate that. And I have to say, too, also repeating myself here, but I also have to say that it only works if people put in the effort and the work like you did. If people just consume the videos or never ask questions or, never implement, never ask for feedback, it's way harder, of course. I mean, you'll learn something, but what you did is exactly what you're supposed to do. You were not afraid to ask questions. You sent multiple revisions of the same song over and over until we got it right, and then the same for the next one and the next one, which is awesome. And it's never stressful for me. I just loved that, because seeing that progress and seeing how hard you worked on it was amazing. And that is the biggest reason actually why it worked. I mean, I appreciate the comments on our content and the way we coach and everything, but the fact that you have implemented all of this and used the opportunity and asked questions and did all that is just a big factor in all of this. And so for anyone who's thinking about joining it, it's not gonna do, it won't happen just without you doing anything. You have to put in the effort. But if you do, it can be, really, really exciting, as it was in your case.
Yeah. And I guess, like I said already, I think that just keep mixing.
Yeah, keep mixing, exactly. Do what Dewi does. All right. Now, is there anything else we should let people know about your music and about, we talked about current projects, about future plans. Anything else you want to tell people about your music? Anything comes to mind?
Oh, I don't know. I think I probably said, like we said already, it's a little bit weird in as much as there's nothing to point anyone at the moment. I've recorded a lot recently, but there's nothing to hear because we're keeping it back for like probably an album's worth. So, and it's the project Altered States is a relatively new thing, so we don't have any history either. So there's nothing to point people at. So I appreciate that's a bit weird.
Do you have anything, like, let's say people reach out to us, and because, you can always, like, if you're listening to this and you get kind of curious about what Dewi does, you can always reach out to me, of course. You can send us an email at podcast@theselfrecordingband.com, or shoot us a DM on any social media platform, and we will happily forward that to Dewi, of course, if you want to get in touch. But is there a possibility, Dewi, that in case someone's interested, you can send them a link or something, or whatever, like, because there might be people who are curious now but don't have anything to listen to. Would that be an option if they reach out?
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. Yeah, I mean, it's all. I love people. That's great. I love people. I just want people to hear it now. Like I said, I've got no illusions of ever, being successful in any meaningful sense. I don't expect to ever make a penny from it. I just spend weeks, possibly sometimes months, working on things, and I just want at the end of it, I just want people to hear it. So the more people that hear it, the better. That's all I care about at this point, really.
Awesome, perfect. Yeah, so get in contact with us, get in touch with us. We'll connect you with Dewi, and then we'll see what happens. And I think your stuff needs to be heard and needs to get out there soon. So I'm looking forward to these releases and to what the future holds for you. And I want to thank you again for not only taking the time to do this today, but for joining the program, for working so hard on your music, for all the kind words you said today. Of course, I really appreciate that. That's amazing to hear. I think that also inspires people. And thank you for everything. It's been a blast. I've had a really good time during these 1.5, 2 years or so. And I'm very happy and proud of what you've accomplished during that time. So thank you. Thanks again.
Thank you. And thanks for your help along the way. Thanks for the positivity, like I said, which has been huge. I guess I've made it quite obvious how huge this has been for me in terms of not just increasing my skill level, it's way beyond that. It's just my understanding, it's my motivation, my confidence. Now, like I said, I'm now at the point where I'm happy for people, really genuinely happy for people to hear it, in as much as I want people to hear it. I was kind of not so sure before, and as it turns out, I was probably right to be a little bit unsure about it. But I think it's now, far more semi-professional sounding level.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah, and if you want to do the same thing, if you're interested in what Dewi did and how it all works, and if you want to just talk about your music and get some feedback, get some next steps and possible next steps for you to take, then go to the selfrecordingband.com/call. Again, that's the selfrecordingband.com/call, and book a free first call. We talk about your music, we talk about where you are right now, where you want to be, and whether or not we can help you get there. And if it turns out it's a great fit for both of us, I might make you an offer about the coaching. If not, at least you'll walk away with an idea and potential next steps to take and some feedback on your music. And so, I would love to hear from you and talk about your music as well. Now, Dewi, thanks again. This has been great today, and I hope we'll keep in touch, and I'll hear from you every once in a while. Now that you kind of graduated from the program, I'll hope to get some updates at some point, and I can't wait to hear those releases once they come out. Please let us know when that happens.
Thank you. Great talking to you again.
Talk to you soon.
Great. All right. Thanks. See you.
All right. Bye.